super fucked up.
That's new.
We need to get inside that dragon.
They're a mouthful of acid, no way.
The other way.
Oh, God.
The Legend of Vox Machina.
I wanted to go ahead and I wanted to talk about The Legend of Vox Machina Season 2. So, for those of you who follow me on other platforms like in Double Toasted, Martin and Vanny and I, we reviewed the first several episodes of Season 2, and I think across the board we really liked it. And I've been doing audio commentaries for this particular season for the last several weeks, chat. And for those that don't know, the series is based on Dungeons and Dragons campaigns from Critical Role, who broadcasted their web series for years. It's adapted into an animated form, and it follows this group called Vox Machina as they go on a variety of adventures trying to save the realm in which they reside in. I've done audio commentaries for the first season. I've done reviews for the first season, and kind of briefly go over that. I really like the first season a lot. I think it was great. I feel like the second half of that season is stronger than the first half, because in the first half of these kind of shows they have to establish a lot. They got to establish the tone, the world, and some of the characters. And so much of that season was focused on one particular character and their stories and their figurative and literal demons, the character of Percy. And here, what I really like about this particular season is not only, is the animation and the action choreography and the humor. They've all improved across the board. But I think that the characters are provided with greater backstories and more depth than ever. Where instead of focusing on the character of Percy, like everyone is getting much more depth than they did originally. It just feels like the series is a lot more confident in itself. Where, after, the last series where the group Vox Machina, they've dealt with the Briarwoods, which are these would-be rulers who have taken over this community called Whitestone, and they were a necromancer and a vampire lord, and they had to battle them, and they had to stop the coming, dark apocalypse, Chad. They did all that, but all of a sudden, I love how this season starts out, Chad, because it really picks up minutes after the end of Season 1, in which we see the arrival of 4 dragons, chat, called the Chroma Conclave, led by the great red fire dragon Thordak, voiced by Lance Reddick, chat, to great effect. Just decimate the kingdom. Just decimate the city of Amon, chat. Turn it into a fiery, molten wasteland, and our heroes have to retreat with a few refugees, a few stragglers, a few survivors, chat, and they have to go on this epic quest to find, people and resources and armies, and, later on, these things called the vestiges of, vestiges of divergence? I forget what it's called. They gotta find ancient artifacts, chat, to fight the dragons, all right? And they have to go on these epic quests, and in between all this questing, they learn more about themselves, you learn more about their history, and there are numerous issues. A lot of daddy issues, a lot of mommy issues. We got uncle issues. We got daughter issues. It's across the board. These people got issues, Chet. And Trinket is still used. Actually, no, Trinket, who is their pet bear. The Vestiges of Divergence. Thank you. I forgot. I was trying to think which word they used to describe the vestiges. No, I have to say, Trinket, who is pretty much useless. They have this big old pet bear decked out in armor. And it's like, that bear looks cool. I wonder what Trinket's going to do. Trinket does nothing in the first season. They leave Trinket behind constantly. In this one, Trinket's actually used to great effect, Chad. We actually learn about Trinket. We learn about the origins of Trinket, Chad, a little baby bear. And it grows up to a big bear that, just eats people, which is nice. But no, that's the thing I really like about this particular season is, this time the creators are not afraid to separate a lot of these characters and give them individual episodes or entire, multiple episodes to explore their backstories and histories. The characters of Vex and Vax, who are these twin half-elves, Chad, half-human, half-elf. We learn more about their past. We only really heard about it. Like, we know that their mom was killed by a dragon, and, that's led to a variety of issues. But, we've heard about their father and how we see just how emotionally, psychologically abusive their father is, and how it kind of turned them the people that they are, how they've become so reliant on each other. A lot of time is spent with them, and particularly with, Vax, who is going through a lot and is being haunted by a weird goddess of ravens, of death. Shay doesn't really understand it. And, all of that, I think, is good. And then them just dealing with their father and trying to find this self-confidence. Everyone's finding their self-confidence in this season and trying to move away from their past, not let their past define them, but to remember it, but to continue forward. And we see a lot of that with Vax and Vax, who've become better people, more confident people. And speaking of confidence, we have the character of Keyleth, who is pretty much inspired by the character of Avatar Aang from Avatar: Last Airbender. She's this druid character who controls the elements. This is a character that deals with a lot of self-confidence issues, and she gets an entire episode where she gets to prove herself, and it is absolutely fantastic. I love that. I believe it was episode 5, in where she masters firebending. And we see her background. We learn about her father, her mother, who is voiced by Janet Varney, who is the voice of Avatar Korra from the Last Airbender spinoff series, Legend of Korra, which I thought was great. And Grog, who was a character, I thought he's the big dumb comic relief, for the most part. He's a half giant, but we learn about Grog's history and his past, and I mean, it is dark, it's disturbing, it's tragic, and even Grog, the little brother of the group. He's, literally their big brother, but figuratively their little brother. We learn more about his history and his family, and the dynamic that that he had to live with, and it's rough. And he grows as a person in this series, and his love for his friends is strengthened. He finds his strength within his friends, which is really good. And even the character of Scanlan, who is very much the comic relief character. In the first season, the first half of the first season, I thought, like, all right, he's just there to make crass, jokes and talk about butt stuff and his penis. So I was like, okay, whatever. It wasn't until like midway through season 1 where I was like, where they literally just give him an episode where he proves himself, because that's his whole thing in that first season. Everyone underestimates me because I'm a gnome, I'm a bard, I say sex stuff, but there's more to him. And here they do something with him where we learn about his past and what his past behavior has caused. And he addresses his inability to stay in place and to back up other people and not run away. And I like how they handle that. He gets he gets several epic moments this season, because his whole thing with Scanlan, he's afraid of settling down and finding love, and he's he doesn't want to open himself up to that. And I think like he uses his promiscuity as a cover. Here we see the results of a promiscuity and what it caused, and it causes him a lot of shame, and he tries his best to address that. And he gets a lot of great moments in this show that are both dramatic and very, very fun. He gets some great, and of course he's the bard. He gets a lot of wonderful musical moments in this season, and they're all great. They're all great. The entire voice cast. By the way, if you don't know, I mean, the people who are part of the Critical Role web series, they all voice their respective characters that they played. Everyone from these are a lot of veteran voice actors like Laura Bailey and Ashley Johnson, who I just mentioned, was his voice is Ellie in The Last of Us games. Matthew Mercer, Liam O'Brien, Marisha Ray, Sam Riegel, Travis Willingham. You guys, you might not know these names, but you've all heard their voices in something, Chad, and they all do a great job. The material that they're given is wonderful. And they have a lot of guest stars in here. I just brought up Lance Reddick. He does such a great job as Thordak, the king of the Chroma Conclave of the dragons. Really sets up the threat and how intimidating and scary dragons in Deanless. Everyone's like, yeah, dragons, they're tough, they're scary. Like, I guess Dungeons & Dragons, they really showcase just how terrifying dragons can be. They're incredibly smart, they're powerful. They know magic, Chad. They're manipulative and conniving, and they're greedy, and it seems to be nearly impossible to defeat them, or it takes so much to defeat them. And this show really does show that off. But yeah, in terms of the technical aspects, like I said, the animation, the fight scenes were already great in season 1, but I think they really improved the animation here for season 2. Like in season 1, they definitely used 3D models, which I'm not the biggest fan of when you mix that with 2D. Traditional 2D animation, even if it is obviously assisted by computers. But I like how it's used here. It's a lot smoother. It's not as janky and like puppet like. You know, it's you know, you could tell it's a 3D model, but there's more movement to it, and there's more expression and you know, personality, physical personality coming out. And like when the characters of Vox Machina, the more traditional 2D characters interact with 3D models, it's a little more seamless, it's a little bit better. And again, the action that they do, it's bloody, it's graphic. There's a lot of people being cut in half, a lot of people being cleaved, ripped apart, a lot of bones breaking, a lot of assholes being ripped out of people. Chat, a lot of people melting this season. We're introduced to another villain. We get a bunch of like evil dragons, Thordax, our leader, but we spend most of the time focusing on this acid dragon called Umbrasil, and he's just fucking gross. He's like, his whole thing, he's like, I literally just vomit acid at you. And he's got vomit coming out of his mouth. He's got vomit coming out of his butt. And it will melt you, Chad. You do not die with dignity when Umbrasil vomits acid on you. And it's anytime he just shows up, it's like, it's very scary, very intimidating. And what they do with him and how they showcase all of his abilities. And you spend like a lot of time with Umbrasil. He's pretty much the main threat for season 2, or the threat that we spend the most time with. It's pretty cool. And the way in which the characters go up against him is very, very exciting and thrilling. You know, if I have any big criticism of the show, and I think it's the same criticism I think I had season 1, a lot of people have season 1, is that the humor will not always land for you. Sometimes I think it's better this season, because so much of the humor now is where I think in season 1 it was more meant to like shock you and be like, here it's a little more character based. They still have like the more shocking humor in here too. You know, more crass stuff, but it didn't feel as prevalent as it was in season 1. But again, you know, comedy is very subjective. So, you know, you're either gonna be with it or you're not gonna be with it. But you know, for the most part, I think I laughed at most of the humor. You know, it was like maybe like, you know, 70-30, if you will. 70% which I like, 30% was like, whatever. You know, but for the most part, I feel like season 2 was great, and I really enjoyed season 1. What's also really good about this show, and I know I've been talking about like, it's based on Dungeons and Dragons, you know, really into fantasy. But what's so cool about this series is that it walks that perfect tightrope where I think it appeals to the people who love Dungeons and Dragons and obviously Critical Role, but at the same time, you don't have to know anything about really fantasy or Dungeons and Dragons or Critical Role to enjoy the show. It's just like, hey, this is just a cool fantasy, you know, series you should check out. And it's really nice to see these, you know, two groups just enjoying this show. Like, I really didn't know about Critical Role outside maybe things I've heard before I even started watching the show, and it made me want to. I think that's what's so great about this series, is that it made me want to check out Dungeons and Dragons, give Dungeons and Dragons another try, and even check out like Critical Role clips and compilations and campaigns. And so, you know, it's doing a great job. It's doing a great job, and I feel like it's been a success so far, and I feel like people should give it a chance. If they had originally found it too intimidating because of they're not really into tabletop gaming, or they find Dungeons and Dragons just too difficult to get into. But I recommend it. I think it's a great show, and what a great start to an animated series in 2023. But that's just my opinions. It's just my opinions on The Legend of Vox Machina Season 2. We're getting a third season very soon, Chad. I imagine next year. I mean, last season, they're popping these episodes out pretty quickly. I love the batches, by the way. I thought it was very smart. Instead of like releasing one episode per week, they released like batches of 3 episodes per week. And that was great, because each batch, they really did nail it. Where it's like, it could be like an arc for a number of characters, or it ends like, each one ends on like a really good cliffhanger. It made me go, ooh, I can't wait to see the next batch of episodes. Like, each one did that. And I don't even want to say what they are because they're spoilers, but each one just nailed the cliffhanger ending and made you want to keep watching. So that's been good. And we also know that we're getting, for those that didn't know, actually, we are getting I guess it's a sequel spinoff series called Mighty Nine, which is like the sequel campaign to The Legend of Vox Machina from, Critical Role. So, I mean, it's clearly a huge success for them, chat. They're doing very, very well, and I'm excited to see both. I'm really excited to see both, but how did you feel about Legend of Vox Machina Season 2? And for those of you who have not watched it, does this sound good? Does it sound something that would entice you? Let me know.